Welcome to the Wild Planet HD channel. Our episode today is about one of the most famous cat breeds on the planet. You know the one, that incredible luxurious coat, those big eyes, that unmistakable flat face. It's the Persian cat, an absolute icon. But behind that famous look, there's a really fascinating story, full of myths, surprising science, and some pretty intense controversy. So today, we're going to dive deep into the complicated history of the Persian cat. So, where did this glamorous cat even come from? Well, for centuries, the story everyone told was this incredible tale about exotic, faraway lands and brave explorers. It was a story that completely captivated the Western world for generations and really sealed the cat's reputation as a creature of pure prestige. You have accounts from way back, like this one from an Italian nobleman named Pietro della Valle in 1620. He writes about this stunning gray cat from the historical province of Khorasan in Persia, saying he just had to bring it back to Europe. He saw it as a true exotic treasure. And this story, this narrative of an ancient purebred cat coming straight from the East, well, that became the foundational myth of the entire breed. It's a great story, isn't it? Super romantic. But, modern science has a way of throwing a wrench in these old tales. And in this case, genetic research has revealed a massive plot twist. It has completely flipped our understanding of the Persian cat's origins, showing us a history that was shaped much, much closer to home than we ever thought. And right here is where that whole romantic myth just completely unravels. Genetic mapping has uncovered something stunning. The modern Persian cat we know and love today has no significant genetic tie to the cat populations in the Near East. In fact, its closest relatives are actually Western European breeds, like the British Shorthair. So what does that mean? It means the fancy cat we call the Persian is really a modern creation, born out of European cat shows and breeding programs. Okay, so if the breed wasn't imported directly from Persia, how was it created? Well, it all kicked off back in the 19th century. There was this huge explosion of interest in cat fancy in Europe. And this was the moment that breeders really started to deliberately shape and mold these long-haired cats into the very distinct breed that we recognize today. You see, this super competitive world of Victorian cat shows became the crucible where the modern Persian was really forged. After making a huge splash at London's Crystal Palace in 1871, breeders basically raced to standardize its look. And their number one goal? To make it look completely different from the other popular long-haired cat at the time, the Angora. And they did that by focusing on some very specific physical traits. And those early breeders were incredibly specific about what they wanted. As you can see here, they started selecting for a rounder head and a really dense, woolly undercoat. These were features that were totally different from the Angora's more wedge-shaped head and its silky, flowing coat. And those choices, even though they might seem kind of subtle, they set the Persian cat on a brand new evolutionary path, a path driven entirely by human taste. All right, so the breed's evolution then took its most dramatic, and I have to say its most controversial turn right in the middle of the 20th century. A single, totally spontaneous genetic mutation popped up, and it would end up splitting the Persian cat into two very distinct and very, very different types. And this was it, the peaky face mutation. It was named that because, well, it looked a lot like the flat face of a Pekingese dog. At first, this look was just a rare, random thing. But some breeders found it really compelling, and they actually began to selectively breed for it, intentionally pushing the cat's features to an extreme that had literally never been seen before. And that one single mutation created this deep, deep split in the breed. This gave us the two types we see today. On one side, you have the traditional dull-face Persian, which looks a lot more like the cats from the early 20th century. And on the other, you have the modern ultra type, where selective breeding has pushed for that extremely flat face. The difference is just, wow, it's stark. And as we're about to see, it has some really serious consequences. You see, achieving this new, quote-unquote, perfect show look, well, it came at a really steep price. The very anatomical changes that were needed to create that flat face have led to a whole host of serious and often really painful health problems for the cats themselves. The scientific term for this kind of head shape is brachycephalic. It's a big word, right? But while it might look cute to some people, it's actually an anatomical abnormality. So let's break down exactly what that skull structure means for the cat's actual well-being. Okay, this list of health problems is just staggering. I mean, just imagine struggling for every single breath because your airways are obstructed inside a compressed skull, or having a hard time eating because your jaw doesn't line up correctly. Their tear ducts don't drain properly, which leads to constant eye infections, and those little skin folds on their faces are prone to really painful dermatitis. For female cats, even giving birth is more difficult and way more dangerous. And as if the structural problems weren't enough, the breed is also plagued by a really devastating hereditary condition, polycystic kidney disease, or PKD. This is an incurable genetic disease that ultimately leads to kidney failure. At its peak, some studies found PKD in nearly half, almost 50% of the entire Persian population. Now, thankfully, genetic screening is now helping responsible breeders start to weed it out, but the problem is still there. So it's really no surprise that all of these health issues combined take a real toll on their longevity. Data from pet insurance records in Sweden reveals that the median lifespan for a Persian is just 12 and a half years. That's significantly shorter than the 15-year average for most other domestic cats. And all of this brings us to the modern-day debate. Because despite all the well-documented health issues, despite the growing ethical questions, the Persian cat remains a global phenomenon. In fact, in 2021, the Cat Fanciers Association ranked the Persian as the fourth most popular cat breed in the entire world. Fourth. Their quiet, calm demeanor and, let's face it, their undeniably stunning looks just continue to win over cat lovers everywhere, which keeps the demand incredibly high. But this huge popularity has also fueled a really powerful pushback. Animal welfare groups and veterinarians are increasingly calling for changes to the official breed standards. They argue that show judges have got to stop rewarding what's called ultra-typing. That's the exaggeration of features like the flat face that is directly linked to animal suffering. And it's not just talk. Some countries are taking actual legal action. Germany, for example, has put specific animal welfare laws in the books to try and curb the most extreme breeding practices. They've made it illegal to produce cats where the tip of the nose is actually higher than their lower eyelids. So all of this leaves us with a really difficult question. The story of the Persian cat is, in the end, a story about human desire, our love for beauty, and our impulse to shape the world around us. But it forces us to ask, where's the line? At what point does our quest to perfect a breed cross over into actually causing harm? It's a question that every potential owner and every breeder really has to consider. I hope you enjoyed our episode and see you in another video.